Hi Aries, welcome. This is Taurus Tours Tarot and I'm Joy. And we are getting a reading for you, Aries. Alrighty, so I am feeling a lot of like the time is like the time is right now. The time is like you're ready. You're ready for you're ready to like collect on something, or you're ready to like receive something that is due to you, that you've perhaps earned, or or was taken and now it's being given back. I'm not quite sure what that's all about, but that's kind of the energy that I'm feeling for you. So we'll see what the cards have to say. Alrighty, here we go. So we have Temperance. Man, I love Temperance. This is a card that has been, let's get it to focus, that has been coming up quite a bit, so I am feeling this general energy of things like starting to come together, like starting to balance out, like the two extreme ends of the spectrum kind of moving more towards middle, more towards balanced. Yeah. And the King of Cups, oh my goodness, the King of Cups has actually been coming out quite a bit too. Both of these cards, Temperance and King of Cups. So, King of Cups is kind of the archetype of someone who has like really mastered their emotions, has really, understands their emotions very well, and to the point that they don't get, caught up in them and be kind of taken away and or go off the deep end, based on their emotions and what they're feeling. Yeah, so something I had just heard a little while ago that made sense, and I hope I get it right. But like, feeling is one thing. So feeling is like, that thing that comes up in you, right? That's the feeling your body is having. Your body mind is having this this reaction almost to a stimulus, and then we name it something, and we put it into a framework, into a context of whatever, and then that is emotion. Okay, so for example, you're feeling all of these, you're with someone new, and things are going wonderful, and every time this person walks through the door, you get this feeling inside of you, right? And then based on your framework of what you understand that certain feeling to be, you give it a name. For example, love, or happiness, or desire, or lust, right? So I thought that was interesting because to make that distinction, and I don't know that I always have before, but yeah. So anyway, something to kind of think about and maybe get more information about. Then we have the Nine of Wands. Yeah, the Nine of Wands is like the wounded warrior. He's been to battle. He's got some scars, or she. And then we have the Seven of Cups. Seven of Cups, oftentimes represents illusion, disillusion. Sometimes represents different options. You have these cups here, and there's different things coming out of the cups. You have, fire and bubbles, and a dove and some vines, ivy, or whatever it is. So interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Let's see. So the Temperance and the King of Cups together is really speaking of just that, about bringing your emotions into balance, and understanding your emotions in a better way, almost like kind of differentiating between feelings and emotion, that sort of thing, right? Like understanding that you have a certain feeling and then, naming it as such, or naming it as something that kind of puts it into context, sort of, right? So, and sometimes, for example, love and lust, right? Like depending on what your framework is of how you sort of understand the feeling that arises in you, you could think that, getting all warm inside and, getting red or, blushing or something when someone that you have these feelings for walks into the room, could, be interpreted as love, when in fact it was more of maybe infatuation or lust or something like that. So it is, you do have to be really discerning, right, about your emotions, about your feelings, and understand them well and bring them into balance in a way so that they serve you, and that they become a guide for you, rather than throwing everything to the wind and just acting on, this emotion that you think you're having, or that you may or may not be having, right? Okay. So the Nine of Wands, like I'm feeling here that, and next to the King of Cups, right? I'm feeling that perhaps there was some hurt in the past related to love, related to, your emotions, and but this really feels like definitely related to another person, right? That you thought you may have been in love with, and I'm kind of really getting the feeling that that you thought you were in love, but that really wasn't love. Like that was something else that you thought was love, based on the idea, the framework that you had about what love was supposed to be, or what love meant, or whatnot. And I just heard that perhaps it was not reciprocated. Okay, that's kind of the feeling I'm getting here, is that you thought that it was love, and but because you were so caught up in these feelings, that feeling that you defined as love, that you were not able to see that the other person was not really there with you, was not really reciprocating those feelings. And so you allow that person to continue to sort of take advantage of you, because that person knew how you felt and used it as, as an advantage over you, to get what they wanted over you. That's kind of what I'm feeling here. So I think that this is a common scenario for many of us. I think it'd be hard to find someone who hasn't been in that situation before, where they thought it was love, but it really wasn't, and they were blinded, right? So you hear that a lot too, blinded by love. You think that it's love, but it's not really, and you're so caught up in that feeling and that emotion that you're unable to see it for what it really is, or you were unable to see it for what it really was. And when you begin to see it, it's painful. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts. It hurts to be in that place where you have these feelings for someone, and that you've defined as love, and you've come to find out that really it wasn't that at all. It was something very different. In fact, it was more like infatuation, or possibly even lust. Yeah, so unless you have a clear idea of what feelings are, then it does get a little bit jumbled up and mixed up and hard to kind of tell sometimes. So I think it's important for you right now to sort of take inventory of of your emotions and what they mean, how you define them, right? So, for example, how do you define love? Is love, a love, for another person, perhaps in a partnership, right? Is that, do you define it as having intense sexual attraction? Do you define it as having intense connection, where you are able to like really connect on a very emotional or intellectual level or spiritual level? What is the opposite of what you would define as love? So think about those things, Aries. I think that it's highly important for you right now to kind of understand that. It's almost like setting a goal, right? Like you have to define exactly what it is you want, or like law of attraction. Okay, so if you're not clear about what it is that you want to attract towards you, then you're just gonna kind of get whatever, And so same for love, right? If you are not clear about what it means to you to be in love with somebody or have a romantic relationship with somebody, or I don't like using the word romantic because I think it kind of conjures up all these other ideas that are not necessarily love. But what I'm speaking of is having like a connection with with someone who you could potentially see as your partner, or who is your partner, something like that, right? So I think it's really important to define it on your terms, so that one, you can recognize it when it comes, and two, you can recognize it when it's not there. Yeah, so I think that's really important for you, and that's definitely what these two cards are speaking of for me. And I feel that like doing that is really going to bring you more balance. It's really going to keep you from being at the completely one end of the spectrum, right? It's going to help you to be more in the middle, right? So, for example, keep you from getting head over heels for someone to the point that like you're just losing yourself in that other person, right? It's going to help bring you back to instead of being so consumed with the other person that you lose yourself, you're going to be able to find that balance and maintain your sense of self and who you are, who you know yourself to be, while also still being able to love someone else. Okay? And, whoopsie. And so I feel like, the Seven of Cups here is kind of like when you are more aware, right, of all these different emotions here. And I feel like these cups are all these different emotions that are available to you. When you become more aware of them, they no longer have a power over you. You no longer are consumed in those different emotions that arise. You become, again, much more balanced. You're able to look like feel those feelings, acknowledge them, and kind of like acknowledge them, but yet be able to like move on from them, right? Like you kind of like add it to your repertoire, like, okay, that's what that, I'm feeling this feeling, and based on how I've defined this, I would say that it's this emotion or something like that, right? And then not getting so consumed in it that again, like that you lose yourself, that you are able to recognize it, you acknowledge it, and then you still maintain your sense of self. Yeah. Because we are never just any one, like it never has to be just any one emotion. It doesn't just have to be like, you don't have to just define it as like love. There could be some lust mixed up in there too, right? There's all these different things that could be this. It could be a passion, it could be this light, happy, airy, bubbly feeling. It could be a spiritual kind of thing, whatever. The point is that there's lots of different emotions that is important for you to really be aware of, so that you don't find yourself in this situation of having lost yourself and having become so consumed by your feelings and your emotions that you lose a part of yourself. Like that is part of yourself kind of like dies. There's like this guy, and the implication is that he's dead there, but so that you don't lose part of yourself to your being consumed in your emotions, and instead you find a real balance with your emotions, and you become the master of your emotions, where you are not controlled by your emotions, but rather you control your emotions, right? You control your emotions instead of being controlled by them. Okay, so being controlled by your emotions is like the person who feels angry, right? And then being consumed by that anger begins to rage. Yeah. We're seeing this all over the news, right? Or it's that feeling of being in love, and acknowledging it, and moving forward in a healthy direction with it, as opposed to, oh my god, I'm so in love and I'm gonna do anything for this person, and that kind of thing. That's not gonna that's gonna get you here, right? Where you feel like a piece of you has died. Okay, so just to share a quick story, something that I had to really come to terms with was my emotions, because I always was a very emotional person, and I actually was very attached to my emotions. I liked them. It was exciting to be in love, or it was adrenaline. It was an adrenaline rush to be angry, or and so I got very involved in my emotions. But oftentimes the result was really this, whereas I, would perhaps regret, acting my emotion out. And it would kind of, not just that I would regret it, but because I acted it out, it would put me on this path that, there was, it just, like, it wasn't good for me. It led me down this different direction that was just not good for me. And so I had to really realize to be more balanced, right? And like in Buddhism, they call that upeksha, which is like this equanimity, it's this balance. So instead of these high highs and really low lows, it was more of this, like, this gentleness to us, of like being able to acknowledge those feelings but not being consumed by them, right? So and I think that's really important for us as a human race moving forward, is to understand that aspect of ourselves, these feelings that come up in us, and being able to exert some control over them. And I'm not saying to mute your feelings. What I'm saying is to feel them but not be consumed by them to the point that your soul self has stepped aside and your feelings have taken over. Okay, all right. Okay, so that is what it is, Aries. If you liked it, let me know. Leave a comment. If you want to see more videos, subscribe, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Aloha and Namaste.